Let's take a look at what you're doing this week. We are in Module 3. We're looking at morphology and reproduction in plants. So you have your weekly overview. It also gives you your weekly objectives and your list of activities. In your learning materials, you have your brief weekly lecture, and you also have this chapter from the online textbook to read. Your first assignment is the plant morphology activity. This gives you an overview of the structure of a vascular plant. Vascular means it's got vessels that run up and down that transport water and nutrients throughout the plant. And then we have a non-vascular plant like a true moss that does not have that vascular tissue. So there's several activities that you're doing with plants this week. You first have your material list. You want to get started right away to get your lima bean seeds and to soak them, because you'll have to do that in advance before you can start this. So you're going to soak those beans for 24 hours. You're going to answer these questions, and then you're going to gently remove the external seed coat, that outer coating from one of the beans. If you damaged the bean in the process, you've got some other ones that you can work with. Once you take off that seed coat, you're going to carefully pry the two halves of the bean apart. You're going to lay them out on a sheet of white paper so that you can label these structures, and you want to take a picture of it. The next thing you're going to do is a scavenger hunt at the grocery store. Go to a grocery store and find a human food product that has an example of each one of these types of things. So something that we consume that is a root, something that is a stem, a seed, a leaf, all of these different things. So you want to go through and take a picture of each one of those things as you see it in the store. Next, you're going to get some flowers and do a flower dissection. So you can buy these flowers in the grocery store, or preferably you can go outside and you can find some flowers in the wild. This link will take you to a page that shows you some of that plant anatomy. You take one of your flowers, you're going to lay it out on a piece of white paper, take a picture of it, and then you're going to carefully remove the sepals. So if you don't know what those are, you need to come back up to the plant anatomy link. You're going to label those on a sheet of paper. You're going to remove and count how many petals the flower has. You're also going to remove the stamens, and using a ruler, you're going to measure the length of the stamen, and then you can calculate an average length. You're going to label the parts of the stamen, so the anther and the filament. You're also going to remove the pistil, and you're going to carefully cut open into the pistil so that you can see inside of that, the stigma, style, and ovary. You want to lay those out, label it, and take a picture. You're going to do that with all three of your flowers. Then it's asking you to create a graph that compares the average stamen height of each flower, and then provide an explanation. Do you see differences? And then why do you think that variation exists? Based on number of petals, you should be able to determine whether or not this plant is a monocot or dicot. Down below the assignment, you can see the grading rubric, so make sure that you look at everything on here to make sure that you've got all the pieces you need to complete the assignment. Your second assignment for the week is to analyze your data from the duckweed experiment. So I want to show you how to do that. You should have a file, whether it's in Excel or Google Sheets, that has your data in it that you've been collecting over the last 10 days. So we're going to take a look at that data set and analyze it together. So here is the file in Excel, and I'm going to show it to you in Excel because the links that are on the website also show you how to do it in Google Sheets. I just made up some numbers here for this column, so these are just fabricated data here. For your new frond growth, we're going to put in an equation here, and we're going to say this is equal to this one, we're at 12 now, minus whatever we had before, 10. So our new growth there was 2. Now, if I highlight this cell and I grab that corner, you see there's a little square there. I grab that corner and I drag it down. It'll do the same thing that I just did for all my other cells. It'll take this one minus that one. It'll do that all the way down. Then over here for the frond growth, it wants us to look at the new frond growth divided by the previous daily frond. Another equation, equal this one, which is the new growth, divided by, but once the previous daily frond count, so that was the day before. How much did it grow from day 1 to 2? 20%. It went from 10 to 12. Okay, we added 2, that's 20%. Okay, and I can do the same thing here. I'm going to grab the corner and I'm going to drag it down. It's going to do the same calculation all the way through. Now yours might have more decimal places here. If it does, I'm going to show you how to fix that. If I highlight these cells and I come here to Format Cells and I select Number, I can choose how many decimal places I have. I have 2 here. Say OK. So I can do the same thing down here. Now the nice thing is I've put the formula up here in this table, so I can actually do a Control-C, and I can come down here to this one and do a Control-V, and it'll do the same thing that I did before. And again, I can pull this down and copy it. Do the same thing with this one. Since I put it in as a formula, I can do Control-C and Control-V, and I can copy all of those down. So it's doing the same calculation all the way through. So I could do this for all of my data sets. So you have your raw data in there. Now you can do these calculations. Now I want to show you how to do some of the graphs it's asking you to do. One of the graphs it is asking you to do is a line graph. And what it wants is to create a line graph where you're looking at the daily growth. So what are the numbers of individuals you have over time? So you're going to have 8 different lines because you've got 8 different cups, and you're going to look at numbers of individuals over the different days for each of those cups. So I want to show you how to do that. I'm going to insert this graph. So what I want to do is I want to take the days, it's going to be on my x-axis, and the count. So that's going to be my x and my y. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to ask it to do a line graph. So I'm going to just select this one. I'm going to click on here, and then I'm going to do select data. And you see here it says series 1. I'm going to give that a title. I'm going to title that Pure Water 1. Okay, so it's my first cup with pure water. I'm going to say OK. And now I want to do the same thing for my second set of data. So I want to add my other set of data. So I'm going to click in here and do select data, and I'm going to add the series name. I'm going to do Pure Water 2. I'm going to go select my X values are here. I'm going to select my Y values are here. I'm going to say OK. So now I have both of those there. And I can do the same thing for all of the other ones. Now what I want to do is to show you how to fix this a little bit. So we are going to come up here to Chart Design, and I'm going to go to Quick Layout. I'm just going to select the first one here on this quick layout. And what it's doing is it's adding the axis titles and a legend over on the side. So what do I have on my bottom axis? This is day. And then on my axis title for the y-axis, this is looking at number of individuals. And we've already got the Pure Water 1 and the Pure Water 2 being labeled. I'm going to get rid of the chart title because, again, when we publish, we typically don't put chart titles on there. So that's how this would look. So now what you're going to do is you can add the other 6 lines on here exactly the way that I just did the first 2 lines. If we come back over here, we can see that we've got, as it says here, we want to make sure that the axes are labeled. We just labeled them. There's a key to know which line goes with which cup. We did that. So we have that. We just need to add the other 6 in there from what I showed you. Now the other thing it wants you to do is to create a bar graph. And for the bar graph, what it wants to do is look at the average rate of change for each of the treatments. So what was the average rate of change for pure water, the average rate for A, B, and C. What we're doing now is we're trying to sort of condense the information into something that very easily looks at it and shows the differences between our treatments, where the line graph doesn't always show us that as clearly. So we want to really make that pop out. And so what it's asking us to do is to calculate the average daily value of growth. So what is the average increase over each day? We're going to create a graph that looks at the average rate per day for each of those. So let's go back to our spreadsheet. I'm going to do an average. I'm going to say equals average. And I'm going to take the average of these and these. All I did was, here's the equation. I said equals average, and then I selected this column here from D15 down to D13 right there. And then I also selected all of the numbers here. So the way that I did that was I clicked on here and dragged it down, and then I hit the control bar to come down and then drag the rest of them down so that I can not get the stuff in the middle. So this is our average daily growth for pure water. Okay, and then I would do this for my other one. So I'm just going to make up some other numbers for now. So let's imagine that I did it for here, and it is, I don't know, let's just say 0.2, and I did it for solution B. Say maybe this is 0.3, and maybe this final one is 0.5. Those are my averages for all of those. So what I would do here is I would create a bar graph, and it might be easier to see what we're doing is if we put in another one and just said treatment, and then do pure water A, B, and C, and then average growth, and then here we had 0.13, 0.2, 0.3, 0.5. Okay, again, these are just made up data. Okay, so what we want to do now is to create a bar graph. So I'm going to select these data, and I'm going to do insert, and I'm going to do a bar graph. If I just select the first one here, this is what it looks like. I'm going to go over to add chart element, and I'm going to add axis titles, horizontal. So this is going to be treatment, and then I'm going to add chart element, axis title, vertical. This is going to be average daily growth rate. So the one thing I would do here is go ahead and take off that title. It really does help when you're doing these if you have some numerical basis down here for your reader, because since we do have numbers that go with this is 0% fertilizer, this has a little bit of fertilizer, a little bit more, and a little bit more. So you can put it that way. If you didn't, if you just left it like this, then you definitely would want to somewhere in here, like in a figure caption, make sure you tell your reader what those actually are. So otherwise A, B, and C don't mean anything to your reader. So you would need to know that this is like increasing levels of fertilizer concentration as we go from left to right. So that goes over the bar graph that you want to do. Now your bar graph is going to look a little bit different. I actually kind of switched up the way that I did A, B, and C. So yours are going to look a little bit different. You'll see that. And then you're going to answer these questions about your experiment. You're going to interpret those results. So make sure that when you are interpreting the results, you're also referring back to your real data. So you're not just making general statements, you're talking about your data and then also generalizing from the data itself. So make a very specific statement about your data and then you can generalize from there. So make sure you answer all of those. Make sure you take a look at this grading rubric to make sure that everything is in there. You have another part of your assignment where it's asking you to create some averages and a bar graph comparing your flowers. And you would do it essentially the same way. If you make this bar graph down here, you would make it the same way that we just did in this one, but you would be using the data from your flowers. So hopefully that will help. Google Sheets is going to be a little bit different, but you should be able to follow these. But if you get stuck on something, please let me know. If you have any questions while you're doing this, please don't hesitate to reach out.